Spoiler warning, the following review contains... Wait a minute. Do I really need to put this up? I mean, Warner Brothers already spoiled like 98.9% of this film in that second trailer. So, I mean, if you watched that already, I mean, you basically know all the spoilers, pretty much. Well, actually, in all seriousness, I am going to talk about the one spoiler that the trailers didn't manage to reveal, but any Superman fan with a brain could have figured out on their own. I mean, should I really count that as a spoiler? I'm not sure. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, where to begin? I mean, I don't want to sound like a pompous ass here, being all like, I told you so, and it's as bad as we feared. But, I mean, what do you want from me? I mean, do you want me to lie? I mean, well, if you came here hoping that I was going to go easy on this movie or tell you that the movie was fine and critics need to get their heads out of their asses, well, it's not too late to turn back and click on something else, right? Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice is a hot mess of a film. It's poorly written from start to finish, it has a performance so cringeworthy that it probably deserves an award for it, and it's got a runtime that goes on and on and on and just keeps digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Before this film was out, people worried that Ben Affleck was going to ruin this film, that he was the Kryptonite in this whole mess, and yet this film has got worse things going on. Things start off okay, I mean, even with the retread of the Wayne's murder for, like, what, the 600,000th time in the last 10 years? But whatever, I mean, it was fine, and then they jumped to the end of Man of Steel from the perspective of Bruce Wayne, and this was all good. But the minute after the flashbacks ended, it becomes a train wreck. I mean, we're jumping from scene to scene, character to character, and more often than not, you're left wondering how we got there and why we got there. What's worse is that the inciting incident to kick this whole film off, the answer to that whole why in the trailers is the world really confused as to Superman's place in it, it's one hell of a piss-poor Kickstarter. So this movie really starts off with Lois in the desert in Africa for some story, for some reason, when it turns out that the camera guy she's with, who I again thought was Jimmy Olsen, who it might be Jimmy Olsen if his IMDb page was correct, but it turns out that he's a spy now for the CIA, and so the terrorist guys grab him and I think shoot him in the head, and then they grab Lois and try to kill her too when Superman shows up. However, while this is going on the inside of a building, some guys outside the building start shooting at some other guys, and suddenly then Superman is being blamed for murdering all these people. Seriously, this is the reason for why Superman has to defend himself to the people of the world. I thought all this anti-Superman hate was coming from, like, you know, the destruction he caused in Metropolis in the last film. I mean, I thought this was Zack Snyder trying to address that, but no, it's this little thing at the beginning, this thing where it's very, very clear that Superman did not murder these people. They have bullets in them, and yet somehow we're blaming the Man of Steel for this. Like, I don't understand where they were getting this from. They had the perfect entry window with the whole Metropolis being destroyed, and that if Superman is going to save us, I mean, is he going to be conscious of what he does when he's trying to save humanity? Like, is he going to take responsibility for blowing up buildings by accident, even if it is for the greater good? But no, it's this weird international incident thingy where guys shoot guys, and yet somehow Superman gets blamed. I mean, I didn't know Superman had the ability to fire bullets too, but that's what this film would have you believe. And also, if you were hoping that Henry Cavill's Superman was going to evolve or be expanded upon in any way for Man of Steel, you'd be very wrong again. Once again, I really like Henry Cavill as Superman. I think he's great, but they just don't give him anything. He feels just as flat as his character was the last time. And again, his relationship with Lois, like I said in my Man of Steel review, it's intensified a lot in this film, like to a whole new level. But I'm still not sold on this at all. Like, I mean, this was Man of Steel's problem, and they just sort of said, well, if you weren't on board with it now, well, screw you, we're moving on. And also, just like last time, Lois really has nothing to do in this movie. She spends an entire time searching for the maker of some bullet that got shot into one of her books when she was out in the desert before the movie really got started. And again, she's been used near the end as something for Superman to save. Like, that's it. Meanwhile, while all this stuff is falling apart, Batman is off trying to discover a way to stop Superman, since he feels like one day Superman is going to go all apeshit and destroy humanity, because I'm not really sure. I mean, I think partially it's due to the events of Man of Steel, but I think it's mostly due to the fact that when Bruce Wayne goes to sleep in this version, he's dreaming of a dark version of Superman complete with Easter eggs for the Justice League movie. Although, on a different note, I do believe that maybe Bruce is just pissed off that Superman broke his building in the last movie. It might be that. I mean, when it comes to Batman in this film, though, I was fine with it. I thought Ben Affleck did a really good job. I mean, I don't really understand where he's getting all this high praise, like, oh my god, he's the best Batman ever to come on the silver screen, like, whatever. Or he's the best one ever to ever be done. I mean, there's not nearly enough of him to make that assumption. I mean, if anything, I'm more interested to see him in a solo Batman film with Affleck just on his own. I mean, that's really what this film just got me more excited for. And in response to all of director Zack Snyder's interviews about this Batman being more brutal, he's like an executioner Batman, he kills, I don't really see it. I mean, yes, he's a little bit more violent, and he's branding people with a bat symbol, but that's about it. I mean, it's not like he's going around snapping people's necks. And then there's Lex Luthor. Okay, let's get the obvious out of the way here. First things first, I like Jesse Eisenberg as an actor. He has been in a ton of things that I really love. Having said that, oh my god. I mean, talk about totally missing the mark. This is like the most embarrassing version of Lex Luthor I have ever seen. Mostly because the writer made Lex Luthor a friggin' nutjob, but it's probably also because Snyder allowed Eisenberg to ham the hell out of any goddamn scene he had in this movie. I mean, before this film was out, a friend of mine was actually convinced that Eisenberg was the Riddler. And honestly, I cannot blame him for thinking about that even before this film was out. Because afterwards, Eisenberg's Lex Luthor comes off as a cheap Joker Riddler knockoff. Seriously, this kid is insane. He's not some smart, savvy billionaire tech genius that just wants to like make the Man of Steel look like an idiot. I mean, he's nuts. Like, he's completely flipped a switch in his head. Like the lights are on but no one's home type deal. The highlight has got to be when he shoves a cherry Jolly Rancher into another man's mouth, or when he's delivering a speech at one of his parties and he starts mumbling and talking at different volumes and speaking crap that makes no sense. I mean, either way, any time that Lex was on this screen, I couldn't take it seriously, and I kept hoping that if there was ever another time for Superman to snap another neck, well, you know where I'm going with that. And don't try to argue that this Lex is really Alexander Lex Luthor and that his daddy is the real Lex Luthor and he's hiding away somewhere. No. That's a cheap way to cover this up and be like, oh, it doesn't really count. No. This is their Lex Luthor. This is what they want. This is what they've chose to go with. Don't try to make little assumptions to help what their poor characterization has done here. The brightest spot in this mess of characters, surprisingly, has got to be Gal Gadot as Diana Prince, Wonder Woman. I can't really judge her acting because, again, she's got less time than Ben Affleck probably has as Batman. But what time she does what she can, and it's not bad. She's also got the best introduction out of all of the superheroes in this movie. I mean, we see Superman at the beginning, he just crashes into a building and stands up and then beats a guy into a wall. Batman's first appearance, he's hiding up in the corner and then he, like, crawls up a hole. But Wonder Woman lands right in the middle of the Doomsday battle with some awesome guitar riffs in the background, and it's great. I mean, I'd say it was completely awesome, but Warner Brothers already spoiled this whole reveal moment in that second trailer, so yeah, great job on WB's marketing team again. I can seriously say that after seeing this movie again, just like for Ben Affleck, I'm interested to see a solo Batman movie. I am way more excited for Wonder Woman's solo film next year, even more than Justice League. Seriously, and I was not really excited for Wonder Woman at all until seeing these little scenes with her right now. I guess at this point I should also mention the teasers that they put in for the Justice League movie, or the whatever plan of 800 movies they have planned for the next 10 years. Some were done well, and some felt a little bit too forced in there. The cool ones were like when Bruce is just searching through a drive that he steals from LexCorp and he sees the files that Lex has on the other metahumans, though I'm really not sure how Lex knew how to give them their logos already. The other good scene was when the future Flash came back to warn Batman of a sort of injustice future where apparently Superman did go nuts and murdered everybody and that they needed to go back to save him in the past, I guess. Though whether this was real or not is kind of left up to viewer interpretation, and as to whether it will ever come back to be true is yet to be seen, obviously. The bad ones were actually seeing the other members in the security footage later in the movie, which just went on for a bit too long, and it really clearly showed them rather than tease them in small little cool ways. I mean, you literally see the Flash in one scene, you see Aquaman come out of a submarine and, like, stab a camera like a scared dolphin, and maybe the only cool one out of this was Cyborg, because you got to see, like, half of Ray Fisher's body, like, glued up to a wall, and then, like, Lego styles, like, the whole thing came in. But again, it was too much, and it could have been toned down a bit and just hinted at rather than just like, hey guys, look over here, there's more characters that we're going to get to eventually. And the other bad one was the aforementioned, like I said before, the nightmare that Bruce has about the deserted world ruled over by Superman. This whole scene is just one giant tease for Darkseid. I mean, what with the flaming pillars that look like they're on Apocalypse and the giant goddamn Omega symbol burned into the ground. I mean, the reason why this whole thing didn't really work for me, or probably anybody, was because the trailer showed way too much of the scene, and WB had released the official steal of Batman staring at the Omega symbol, so we knew all this was coming. And also, newcomers to DC's shared universe of heroes might have no idea what any of this had to do with anything. And it doesn't even tie into anything later in the film, or it's not like there's an end credit scene that comes back to tie it in. It's just there, and it's, again, like the Flash little cameo, whether this will turn out to be true or not is really up in the air. And now on to the big spoiler that WB managed to keep a secret. Well, I guess sort of. Yes, Doomsday kills Superman in the end. I know, big surprise. Also, on the subject of Doomsday, I am so glad that the cave troll from Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, is finally getting some more work in the industry. I mean, it's a tough world out there for CGI characters, but I'm so glad. I don't really know what to say about this whole thing. I mean, when Doomsday was revealed again in that trailer, which ruined any sense of his surprise involvement, I mean, fans, including myself, were pretty positive that the Man of Steel was going to make it through this, since, I mean, Superman was already mentioned to be in the Justice League film. I mean, it was only 2 films into this big franchise. I mean, why kill him? But yeah, they went for it, which means that we now need to waste the first part of the Justice League movie having it be bogged down with them trying to explain how Superman comes back from the dead. Although knowing Snyder and his piss-poor writers, I'm sure Superman is just going to break out of the coffin, mullet and all, acting like nothing happened. I mean, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I have never wanted to see a live-action version of the Death and Return of Superman storyline, like, at all. I mean, the death part is fine with, like, the whole big fight with Doomsday, but the aftermath of having the other 4 Superman guys show up, and then the real one showed up later anyway, I mean, it always just seemed cheap and lazy. Though, knowing Snyder, he already thinks he can put as many characters he damn well pleases into these films, so for all we know, Justice League Part 1 will probably feature all 4 Supermen in there, in addition to Batman and Diana Prince tracking down the other members of the League. Though I guess my biggest issue here was the lack of a real motive for Batman and Superman to duke it out. I mean, there has been a ton of comparisons to this film to Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, and yes, in some spots it's clear as day that that was the inspiration used here. I mean, the style of the Batman logo, the armored outfit, the Dark Knight's end confrontation with the Man of Steel, it's all from that. However, the build-up to the fight in that story in comparison to the film story is night and day. Without retelling the entire comic, I'll just hit the main important bits here, which is that it involves an elderly Batman, I guess, coming out of retirement, leading a group of other Bat vigilantes, Batmen if you will, to essentially protect Gotham City from a horde of criminals that spring up after the US is hit by an EMP launch that I think Superman causes by accident or something. Anyway, Batman and his crew end up making Gotham the safest city in America. I know that's one hell of a thing to say. Much to the humiliation of the US government. So, to combat against Batman and make him look like a fool, the government sends Superman to go kick his ass. And essentially in this comic book, Superman is their lapdog. Since he kind of feels like he can't save people on his own anymore, he needs to work with Uncle Sam to get anything done. So this fight is essentially inevitable. Superman doesn't really want to hurt Bruce, but he will for the sake of duty, and Batman doesn't really want to fight Clark, but he's more than willing to do so in an attempt to save Gotham in his own way. But in this film, it's just so stupid. Here, I guess it's just that Batman is piss-poor afraid that if Superman's favorite TV show gets cancelled, he'll go nuts and enslave the entire planet to his will. And while Superman here is no friend of the government, I guess he just feels like he thinks that Batman views himself above the law, and that's wrong, I think? I'm not entirely sure. I think that's why he doesn't like him. I mean, even the setup, the actual setup for why they're beating the crap out of each other is weak and contrived. See, Lex, as it turns out, is behind all of this. I know, surprise, shocking, I'm spoiling things left and right. And Lex captures Martha Kent, since I guess Lois was too busy doing something else at the time. And he gives Superman an ultimatum. It's basically, kill Batman or your mommy dies. So Superman goes to fight Batman, and he tries to explain to them before they fight that he doesn't want to fight, but Batman has, I guess, bat wax in his ears and can't listen to him. So instead of a logical scene where the two talk it out and decide what they want to do, we get 10 minutes of the pair kicking the crap out of each other for no real meaningful reason. Granted, the kicking the crap out of each other looks really good, and these scenes are awesome, but again, there's no reason for why they're doing it. I mean, also, there's no logical reasoning behind who to side with here. You either just wanted to see the Immortal guy bitch slap the Mortal Man, or watch the Mortal Man curb stomp the Immortal guy for sheer spectacle alone, without actually having any reason for it. And now I think I'm just going to have to list some plot holes and gaps in logic that annoy me as the film went on. I would talk about these in, like, greater length, but I really don't know how to put them all together because it's all over the place. So here, at just random, are some points that pissed me off. Feel free to answer these in the comment section. Feel free to question them yourself. So here we go. 1. Why is Lex so pissed at Superman right from the start of the film? 2. How did Lex know that Superman would come flying in to save Lois in any situation despite the fact that he's never seen that before? 3. How does Lex know Superman's real full name by the end of the movie? 4. How did Clark learn that Bruce was Batman by the end of the movie? 5. How did Lex get into the Kryptonian ship that was in the middle of Metropolis without being attacked by that security robot that attacked Lois in Man of Steel? And don't say it's because he had Zod's fingerprints, because I'm pretty sure it would still see that he had human DNA. 6. Also, how did he get in there without passing a guard outside? And what did he do? Smuggle Zod's body in along with him? 7. How did the ship take Zod and turn him into Doomsday, and for what purpose? 8. Why does Lex's blood in Zod's dead body turn him into Doomsday anyway? 9. How did Lois get her shot-up journal back from Africa's desert thingy? 10. Why was Mercy Graves in this movie? 11. Why did Clark have to go to Mount Everest to have a flashback of his dead father, or was this just a deleted scene from Man of Steel? 12. What happened to Robin? Yes, I know what happened to Robin because I've read comics, but how do casual audience members know this? 13. Why is Wayne Manor destroyed? 14. Why is the crashed Kryptonian ship still left in the center of Metropolis a year after it's crashed? Why hasn't the government taken it and placed it in a contained warehouse away from the public? 15. Why is the World Engine left in the Indian Ocean without any guards of any kind, and where random kids can go swimming around it and take what the hell they want from there? 16. Why did the film have to keep telling us that the final battle was taking place in an uninhabited area? I'm just kidding, I think we all know why they did this. 17. Why didn't Batman just listen to Superman before fighting him, since if he had, they wouldn't have had to fight at all? Also, thank God that Clark and Bruce's mothers had the same first name. 18. How does Lex know which symbols to give to which members of the Justice League? 19. Why does Lex shave his head in prison at the end of the film? 20. What happened to that other guy from the Daily Planet that was in Man of Steel? 21. Why do Lex and Superman only have one scene together in this whole movie? 22. Why was Clark so accepting of Wonder Woman joining the fight against Doomsday? Isn't he confused as to who she is? 23. How did Bruce get Wonder Woman's email address to send her those files back? 24. How does Superman survive a nuke to the face but he can't survive a stab to the chest? 25. How does Lois know to go back into the building to grab the Kryptonite stick when the heroes are fighting Doomsday without anybody having told her what it will do to Doomsday? 26. How did Superman hear Lois banging on that rock when she was drowning? Does his super hearing just have his own Lois frequency at this point? 27. Did Bruce really think that Superman wrote those messages on those checks, or did I misread that scene entirely? 28. How did Superman know that Batman was tracking the truck with Kryptonite and know the exact route that he was taking to know to stand in the exact spot to hit the Batmobile? 29. Why does Superman distrust Batman? He tells him not to go to his bat signal, but why? What did Batman do that was so wrong? If anything, he's just a misunderstood hero just like Superman. 30. What the hell was Lex talking to Bruce about in that final scene in the prison? Or hell, explain what he was talking about in any scene in which he speaks. And 31. Bonus question. Why the frick did DC and Warner Brothers give the creative controls to the entire DC shared universe to an asshole like Zack Snyder? Now, I'm sure there are more, but that's all I can really remember at this point. Feel free to add more in the comments if you would. Now, there's been a lot of controversy over some of the reviews that this film is getting, and already it's at, I think, it's fluctuating between a 30 and a 29 on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, fans are saying that critics are being biased against DC, or that haters gonna hate. I mean, even the actors in Snyder were pressed about this at one of their press tours, and they gave their stereotypical stock answers of, we made the films for fans, not for critics, and the audiences will be the true critics, which I guess is more true than anything, I guess. I mean, I was prepared for Batman vs. Superman to be a bit underwhelming. A bit! And I was hoping that low score was just some critics being douchebags and giving the film a tough time. But I mean, after seeing it, I agree with a lot of what's being said. This film is poorly paced with scenes that don't flow well into each other, and complete with plot holes and gaps in logic. I mean, I just listed 30 of them, and I'm sure there's more that you can find. And it's so damn long, even once the action starts. And like I said, the action is the greatest part of this movie. It's beautiful to look at. But even when it does start up, it just keeps going and going and going, and it never ends. And it already took us like 2 hours to get here. Like, come on. Also, the final battle, the only thing that really lacked any punch from it was that a majority of it was shown in trailers and clips. Seriously, can someone fire the WB marketing team that worked on this because they suck? So what does this mean for DC going forward? Probably nothing. This film is going to make stupid money at the box office, and the fact that it's doing so bad in reviews is just a good thing for it. It's going to instigate so many people into checking on it to see how bad it is. I mean, also, the Wonder Woman movie just wrapped up about a month ago, and Zack Snyder's already prepping to destroy the rest of DC's hero next month when Justice League Part 1 starts filming. I mean, if there was a plea I could make to WB or DC, it would be to probably just get rid of Zack Snyder from this franchise, like, entirely. He is not right for this, nor are his screenwriters any better. I bet you anything years ago after Christopher Nolan finished up his Dark Knight trilogy, WB probably wanted him to be in Snyder's place. There's been rumors ever since that WB wanted Nolan to oversee their future DC film slate, that they wanted him to, like, Godfather the whole thing, but I'm not sure how true it all was, or whether Nolan ever expressed interest in it. I mean, granted, Nolan is still a producer on this and Man of Steel, but a producer just puts money into a project, and he doesn't really have any final say on anything creative or otherwise, and I doubt Zack Snyder was going over to Nolan and like, hey, how do you think this feels, or how do you think this looks, or how do you think this script is looking right now? So in closing, I'll just say this. Batman vs. Superman, it might not be the worst, superhero movie ever, just like Man of Steel was. Again, it's also not the worst movie I've ever seen or that's ever been in existence. But it's a huge disappointment to Man of Steel as a follow-up, and it's an even bigger letdown as the second installment in DC's shared universe planned. I mean, I thought Man of Steel was just a mediocre superhero movie, but Batman vs. Superman isn't mediocre. It's just a sad, jaded, squandered mess of a film with a script possessing no depth or soul, seeming to exist just to play catch-up to Marvel in all the wrong ways. You want to watch a good Batman vs. Superman movie? Go watch the Dark Knight Returns animated thing that came out like a year or two ago. Or hell, I recently just rewatched The World's Finest episode from the animated Superman 90s TV show, and I had more fun watching that than I did this movie. It's ironic how the two animated Superman projects are leagues better than the live-action ones that are being poured in with billions of dollars. WB and Warner Brothers should not take this lying down, though. I mean, they should consider getting better directors and writers for these future films and not just willing to let things unfold as they are, mediocre and casual as they may be. Maybe one day WB and DC will wake up and realize the trick to these shared universe films is quality over quantity. And then it will truly be a dawn for justice, not for DC's heroes, but for their fans who deserve this more than anything. Thanks for watching.